Hi, Room 203. This is Mrs. Nelson, and I'm reading another chapter of Matilda, and this one's called The Platinum Blonde Man. And I might read another one. We'll see how far we get and how long it takes me. The Platinum Blonde Man. There was no doubt in Matilda's mind that this latest display of foulness by her father deserved severe punishment. And as she sat eating her awful fried fish and fried chips and ignoring the television, her brain went to work on various possibilities. By the time she went to bed, her mind was made up. The next morning, she got up early, went into the bathroom, and locked the door. As we already know, Mrs. Wormwood's hair was dyed a brilliant platinum blonde, very much the same glistening, silvery color as a female tightrope walker's tights in a circus. The big dyeing job was done twice a year at the hairdresser's, but every month or so in between, Mrs. Wormwood used to freshen up by giving it a rinse in the wash basin with something called platinum blonde hair dye extra strong. This also served to dye the nasty brown hairs that kept growing from the roots underneath. The bottle of platinum blonde hair dye extra strong was kept in a cupboard in the bathroom, and under the title on the label was written words, "Caution, this is peroxide." Sorry. Keep away from children. Matilda had read it so many times with fascination. Matilda's father had a fine crop of black hair which he parted down the middle and of which he was exceedingly proud. "Good strong hair I have," he was fond of saying, "means there's good strong brains underneath." "Yeah, like Shakespeare," Matilda had once said to him. "Like who?" the father asked. "Was he brainy?" "Well, very much so, Daddy." "He had masses of hair, did he?" "He was actually bald, Daddy." To which the father had snapped, "If you can't talk sense, then you need to be quiet, girl." Here's a picture of him combing his black hair, and there's Matilda. Next page, I'll show you the picture first. There he is at the sink. Anyway, Mr. Wormwood kept his hair looking bright and strong, or so he thought, by rubbing into it every morning large quantities of a lotion called Oil of Violet Hair Tonic. A bottle of this smelly purple mixture always stood on the shelf above the sink in the bathroom alongside the toothbrushes, and a very vigorous scalp massage with oil of violets took place daily after shaving was completed. This hair and scalp massage was always accomplished by a loud masculine grunts and heavy breathing and gasps of, "Ah, now that's much better. That's the stuff. Rub it right into the roots," which could be clearly heard by Matilda in her bedroom all the way across the corridor. Now, in the early morning privacy of the bathroom, Matilda unscrewed the cap of her father's oil of violets and tipped 3/4 of the contents down the drain. And then she filled the bottle up with her mother's platinum blonde hair dye extra strong. She carefully left enough of her father's generous hair tonic on the bottle so that when she gave it a good shake, the whole thing still looked reasonably purple. She then replaced the bottle on the shelf above the sink, taking care to put her mother's bottle back in the cupboard. So far, so good. As breakfast time came, Matilda sat quietly at her dining room table eating her cornflakes. Her brother sat opposite her with his back on the door, devouring hunks of bread smothered with mixtures of peanut butter and strawberry jam. The mother was just out of sight around the corner in the kitchen making Mr. Wormwood's breakfast, which always has 2 fried eggs in it on fried bread with 3 pork sausages and 3 strips of bacon and some fried tomatoes. At this point, Mr. Wormwood came noisily into the room. He was incapable of entering any room quietly, especially at breakfast time. He always had to make his appearance felt immediately by creating a sense of noise and clatter. One almost could hear him saying, "It's me, here I come, this great man himself, the master of the house, the wage earner here, the one who makes it possible for all the rest of you to live so well. Notice me and pay your respects." On this occasion, he strode in and slapped his son on the back and shouted, "Well, my boy, your father feels he's in for another great money-making day at the garage. I've got a few beauties I'm going to flog into these idiots this morning. Where's my breakfast now?" "It's coming, treasure," Mrs. Wormwood called from the kitchen. Matilda kept her face bent low over her cornflakes. She didn't dare look up. She wasn't sure what she might see. And secondly, she did see what she thought she was going to see. She didn't trust herself to keep a straight face. The sun was looking directly ahead out of the window, stuffing him bread and peanut butter and strawberry jam into his mouth. The father was just moving around to sit at the head of the table when the mother came in, sweeping out from the kitchen, carrying a huge plate piled high with eggs, sausages, bacon, tomatoes. She looked up, she caught sight of her husband, she stopped dead, and she let out a scream that seemed to lift her right into the air, and she dropped the plate with a crash and splash, and everyone jumped, including Mr. Wormwood. "What the heck is the matter with you, woman?" he shouted. "Look at this mess you've made on the carpet. Your hair, your hair." The mother was shrieking. "Look at your hair. What have you done with your hair? What's wrong with my hair, for heaven's sakes?" "Oh my God, Dad, you've done something to your hair," the son shouted. A splendid noisy scene was sent building up nicely in the breakfast room. Matilda said nothing. She simply sat there admiring the wonderful effect of her own handiwork. Mr. Wormwood's fine crop of black hair was now a dirty silver, the color of the time of a tightrope walker's tights that had been washed for the entire circus season, that had not been washed. You've dyed it," Mother said. "Why'd you do that, you fool? It looks absolutely frightful. It looks horrendous. You look like a freak." "What the blazes are you all talking about? I most certainly have not dyed my hair. What do you mean I dyed it? What happened to it? Is this some sort of stupid joke you're playing on me?" His face was turning a pale green, the color of sour apples. "You must have dyed it, Dad," the son said. "It's the color of Mum's, much only dirtier looking than hers. Of course he dyed it. He can't have changed the color all by himself. What on earth were you thinking? Make yourself look handsome or something. You look like someone's grandmother gone wrong." "Get me the mirror," Father yelled. "Don't just stand there shrieking at me. Get me a mirror." The mother handed the mirror from her bag, and it was a small, round, compact mirror on the inside of the lid. She opened the compact, handed it to her husband. He grabbed it and held it before his face, and in doing so spilled most of the powder all over the front of his fancy tweed jacket. "Be careful. Now look what you've done. It's my best Elizabeth Arden face powder." "Oh my God," the father said. "What happened to me? I look terrible. I look like something's gone wrong. Like you, but gone wrong. I can't go down to the garage and sell cars like this. How did this happen? How could it have happened?" He looked at all of them. And lastly at Matilda. "I imagine, Daddy," Matilda said quietly, "that you must have not looked very hard and simply took Mummy's bottle of hair stuff in the shelf instead of your own." "Of course that's what happened," Mother said. "Well, really, Harry, how stupid can you get? Why don't you read the label before you start splashing stuff all over you? Mine's terribly strong. I've only meant to use 1 tablespoon in a whole basin of water. It'll probably take all of your hair off to the end. Is your scalp beginning to burn, dear? You mean, am I going to lose my hair now?" "I think you will," Mother said. "Peroxide is a very powerful chemical. It's what they put down the lavatory to disinfect the pan, only they give it another name." "What are you saying?" I don't want to be disinfected, even diluted like that. It makes a good deal of my hair fall out, so goodness knows what's going to happen to you. I'm surprised it hasn't taken the whole top of your head off. What shall I do? Tell me quick before it starts to fall out." Matilda said, "I'll give it a good wash, Dad. If I were you, I'd give it one with soap and water, but then you'll have to hurry." "Well, will it change the color back?" "Of course it won't," Mother said. "Then what do? I can't go around doing this. I can't look like this." "You'll have to dye it black," Mother said, "but wash it first, or there won't be any other dye in it." "Right. Now get me an appointment," Father shouted, "with your hairdresser. I need a hair dyeing job. Tell them it's an emergency. We've got to boot someone else off their list. I've got to go upstairs and wash it." With that, the man dashed out of the room, and Mrs. Wormwood sighed deeply and went to the telephone to call the beauty parlor. How does he do some silly things now and again, doesn't he, Mummy? Mother dialed the number on the phone. "I'm afraid men are not always quite as clever as they think they are. You will learn that when you get a bit older, my dear girl." I think I'll stop here, and I want you to think about a couple of things before I turn off the video. One, do you think that's kind of mean of Matilda, or do you think it's just getting even? And what do you think of her playing all these tricks? Do you think it's going to change the way her father and mother treat her, or what do you think? What do you think is going to be the result of all of this? I worry that her parents are going to act worse towards her. I wonder.